blue skies, we walk the line. Ideas flowing easy like a glass of fine wine. BayInCo dreams, all business on the rise.
There we go, sorry. Yep.
One more.
One more.
One more, yeah. Well, I suppose no digital event will be honest if it didn't have a bit of a reclam. I'd like to just give it a very, very short introduction to BayInCo. Since we're hosting the event, this is a company that was initially started back in 2018 between me and my colleague here, Lars. A lot of the values were based on being professional, being pragmatic, and being personal. And a lot of what we do today is underpinned by those three values. Today we are working with around 100 to 150 consultants. We rent consultants out as a consulting company. And there's lots of added values to working with BayInCo. We can find flexible solutions. We're very solution orientated. And together we have over 50 years of team building, recruitment, and skill mapping experience. And for us, it's about being pragmatic for customers in terms of being efficient and finding long-term efficiencies in our focus. Next slide, Marcus. A little bit of a selection of what we do. Predominantly, we focus on interim management. So we talk about levels of CFO, accounting managers, and group managers. But we also work on specialists with interim consulting. So typically controllers, economists, HR specialists, and those within sustainability. And to complement those products and services, we also do permanent recruitments, more or less in the same with managers and specialists. And then we also take more of a consultative approach. So we work a lot with coaching, but also on leadership development on the training side. So, Marcus. And this obviously gives you a little bit of our customers. Obviously, our partners in this case would be Business Region Gothenburg, but this is more of the customers that we've actually helped deliver some of our services. Thank you, Marcus. And I really wanted to lift this because I think this is really quite important for us in terms of our values. We donate to our charity of choice, which is water.org. And we've made a promise that for every consultant that we have out, we will make a donation to this charity. And for every donation that we're making, a family will get clean or accessible water for 20 years. So we've made a promise to us and to our network that that's what we will give back to the community. So, yeah, thanks, Marcus. So now the good part. I'd like to welcome Marcus Scoliege, who's from Business Region Gothenburg. He's the head of foreign direct investment. I think Marcus will be able to introduce himself in a minute. I think the reason that we do these events is because, of course, the topics are very, very interesting. We like to share information with our network, and this topic in particular, for me, is quite personal. I think from a Gothenburg perspective. But we do other events also. We do other initiatives, and maybe Lars wants to introduce a couple of those.
Yeah, I think of course this is the main event for today, but we like to make sure that everybody can reach their full potential, and of course part of that now, without taking away the importance of this, is of course everything that is happening around AI. So we're actually launching next week our AI agent clips on LinkedIn. So watch out the space on LinkedIn, and we'll try to make sure that you can get a little bit inspired to try to use the new and future techniques.
Great. Marcus, I actually have somewhat of a personal fascination with Gothenburg, since I'm obviously not from Gothenburg. I'm a foreigner. I arrived to Gothenburg 14 years ago. And sitting in my chair as a recruiter, I'm quite privileged to actually work with different levels of people, but also working in different industries with different companies. And I've seen over my period here, 14 years, there's been such a transition with Gothenburg, not just on the work and the construction around, but all other aspects. When we talk about international companies coming to Gothenburg and making the investment in Gothenburg, some of the smaller companies now are multi-billion-dollar companies in terms of growth. I've seen an extreme amount of international talent coming from abroad, from Europe, but even further away, if we talk about Asia and the US, for example, into Gothenburg. And we are still a very, very small city. I've seen that there's a lot of investments from the startups, from the universities, for example. And there's been a lot of change, I think, in terms of the culture and how Gothenburg has been perceived. And for me, I've been extremely, extremely fascinated by that. Some months back, you and I took a podcast, and I'll put the link in the group chat so anybody wants to listen to the podcast after. And that really, I think that really got me thinking about, what you're doing, where the city's at, where the city's going, and of course, everything that we have in terms of the future. So together with you, we want to obviously discuss a little bit more in detail. I use the phrase that, the facts, the numbers don't lie. And I think it'll be quite interesting for us to look at what's actually really going on within the Gothenburg area. And I just want to lift a couple of things in terms of the city. We will talk about the business end, but more on a fun side, there's 16 key facts. I'm not going to read all 16, but the ones that I've highlighted are actually quite interesting. Is Sweden is the most attractive city for qualified labor, and it's seen as a popular quality for life, family friendliness, and sustainability. And we won the second consecutive year with Stockholm close in second place, and I think that's also very interesting. We've got the best rooftop bar in the world, apparently, which is in Gothenburg, and this is situated on the 7th floor of the Comfort Hotel, and that's been voted as the best rooftop not once but 4 times. We're also being classified as the world's most sustainable destination. We've got Sweden's best ice cream, and I know for my own fact that's true because my kids ask me for ice cream all the way through the summer. We are Sweden's beer capital, and according to the international rankings, where some of the best beers come from Gothenburg. We wonder why, and I think because the tradition has started back in 1621, and today there's around 40 breweries in the Gothenburg and the surrounding region. We now have the tallest building in Scandinavia, which is reaching almost 246 meters. And finally, which is also very interesting, we have the most electric buses in the Nordics. So some fun facts to get the session started. So over to you, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Lars, and thank you also for everybody listening in today to learn a little bit more about Gothenburg. I understand many of you are in Gothenburg or know Gothenburg well as well, but hopefully I can present a few different sides of Gothenburg for you all that you can take with you in the work that you do going forward. Those fun facts are good, Craig. I like them. I like the ones that you chose as well because they're very much the sort of the things that make you feel good about living in a city. And like you, I'm also not originally from Gothenburg and have spent the last 20 years on and off living in Gothenburg, but originally come from the other side of the world as well. And it's always nice to come to a place where you feel at home, and that's what you do when you move into Gothenburg and get settled here. I've been working for Business Region Gothenburg or Business Region Gothenburg now for just over 2 years. I'm the head of the Foreign Direct Investment team, which is part of the establishment division here in Business Region Gothenburg. And we're responsible for looking how we can attract more international investment into the city to help the city grow further. So a lot of my presentation will be around some of the things that we do and also how we work, but also some of the facts and figures that make Gothenburg an interesting place for international investors to come here. So I'll move into my presentation then, if that's okay. Unfortunately, I can't see, because of the way my computer's set up, I can't see if there's any questions or anyone wants to ask something. So I'll have to leave that to you, Lars or Craig, to let me know if there's something that comes up.
No problem. We'll take that.
So Gothenburg, this is the brand that we use to promote Gothenburg internationally. It's a brand that we share together with the destination marketing organization in Gothenburg, Göteborg and Company. And we have a website, Invest in Gothenburg, that uses branding as well. And everywhere we go when we represent Gothenburg internationally, this is the branding we use. So you'll be familiar with that. And of course, we quite often start our presentations by saying where is the Gothenburg region in relation to the rest of Sweden, and obviously where is Sweden in relation to the rest of Europe. It's amazing how many conversations can start just by showing a picture such as simple as that, and trying to understand that where is Gothenburg in relation to not only Stockholm but also the other larger cities in the Scandinavian countries, and where it is in relation to Europe. the messaging that we use when we're talking about Gothenburg internationally to promote the destination as a place to invest is one that you've already used in the introduction today, hotspot for innovation. But we also like to use that in collaboration or alongside two other taglines, which is being a front runner in sustainability, and also very important is a master of cooperation or collaboration. The way that the studies that we've done show that the combination of these three is what makes Gothenburg a unique place to move to. And I'll come into some of the reasons why that in my presentation. But of course, a lot of other destinations use similar sort of taglines, being the best innovation, we're very sustainable, etc. So it's really the combination of these three and being able to demonstrate that in facts and figures makes it more powerful. So I thought I'd just start the presentation now with a very short video about why we think it's good to invest in Gothenburg and what we use when we're marketing Gothenburg internationally. So hopefully this will work well.
Why on earth should you invest in Gothenburg? Well, perhaps because Earth means everything to us. And we attract companies and people who share our passion. The result? A sizzling hotspot for innovation. Pioneering companies and thousands of individuals who see the beauty and power in collaboration, making us a green tech hub and the growth engine of Sweden. A leading region for the development of next-generation electrification and mobility solutions. With a world-leading automotive cluster, a fast-growing battery industry, soon featuring 2 gigafactories. Add deep tech, logistics, ICT, and life science. More than 60 active test beds, 2 science parks, groundbreaking research and development. You get the picture. It's happening as we speak. Collaborations across industries, academia, and society. Open minds, new ideas. Inspired by bustling city life and astounding nature. Attracting skilled people from around the world to live, work, and develop our shared future right here, and here, and here. Perhaps that explains why Gothenburg has repeatedly been awarded not only the world's most sustainable city destination, but also Sweden's best logistics location. Right here in the heart of Scandinavia, we're simply perfectly positioned to help companies like yours achieve amazing things. With the highest concentration of engineers in Sweden, some say we're the Nordic capital of getting things done. We couldn't agree more. Feel the spirit? Welcome to invest in the future. Become a part of the green transition and grow your business today and tomorrow.
So that's our 2-minute video about why you should invest in Gothenburg, and a number of the sectors, the key sectors that we focus on are listed in that video as well. You would have noticed quite a heavy focus on not only the automotive or electrification of the automotive industry, but also life science, ICT and logistics are important areas as well. Another focus that we have when we're trying to encourage more investment into the city alongside the automotive industry. We also stress quite heavily the fact how well positioned Gothenburg is, not only from a geographical space, but also in terms of its collaboration with academia and the public sector, as well as businesses, and the people that are living here in terms of the education they receive is well placed for those types of high skilled, high competence jobs as well. So a little bit briefly about what Business Region Gothenburg is. For those that don't know, we are the city's economic development agency for Gothenburg region, which is not only the city of Gothenburg, but as the map to the right shows, 12 other municipalities that border on or very close to Gothenburg, stretching from Stenungsund in the north to Kungsbacka in the south and Alingsås in the east. We've been around as an official economic development agency since just the turn of the millennium, but the the function of being a näringslivskontor has been around since well into the 80s. We've got 4 main divisions or departments. So the one I work for, which is part of the what we call establishments and investments. Then we also have collaboration and innovation. We have a department called business and entrepreneurship, and the final one is our marketing department that also looks after all the communication and international marketing efforts that we do as well, including our website. The business and entrepreneurship department looks after local businesses that have been in Gothenburg for a long time or are relatively new and growing, and typically the small to medium-sized enterprises that we work with there. And the collaboration and innovation department is looking how we can form groups of companies together to work alongside each other to have an overall better impact into the areas that we work in. And that can be within a particular sector or branch, but also can be cross-sectoral collaborations as well. A good example there is how the life science and automotive industries are working more closely together now to understand how you can save lives through vehicles by putting sensors in them to monitor health or heart rates, for example. So investment promotion, which I'm responsible for, is a core activity of the work that we do. And as I mentioned before, we're owned by the city of Gothenburg, represent the 13 municipalities of total. It's around 85 people that work here, and we receive our funding primarily through the city, which is around 95 million Swedish crowns. But we also apply for and receive quite a lot of project funding as well through different funds that are available, both Swedish ones but also EU ones. So our total budget and is another 50 million on top of that, more or less, that we have annually. When it comes to attracting investments, just a brief summary, we've attracted around or helped assist around 180 companies move to Gothenburg in the last 10 to 15 years. And we try to focus very much on those investments that we believe will contribute to the region's green and digital transformation, and also will be there for a sustainable growth period, so that will contribute to the economy here by employing more people or bringing the right sort of skills that we want in those areas such as mobility and battery, life science, ICT and logistics. And of course, not to forget also the investment that's needed into urban development here, which I will come on to a little bit later on. Some of the companies that we've collaborated with over the last years, here are the more well-known ones that you probably all have heard of. Obviously Volvo, obviously Polestar have made a decision to invest here with their global headquarters, which will be starting to be built in the near future, but in the old Frihamnens area next to the new bridge. And Geely obviously is well known as well. AstraZeneca has one of their 5 larger research divisions based here in Mölndal, and next to that you've got the GoCo development that's happening, which is over the next 10 years going to attract around 350 new companies within the life science space to grow into that cluster as well. Thermo Fisher is one of the new additions to that cluster, which they signed an agreement with AstraZeneca just last month, and will in the near future establish a lab in the GoCo area, which will focus on testing of pharmaceuticals, and will employ in the near term around 140 skilled people. And Plug and Play is the American innovation and accelerator, which has moved into Lindholmen to work alongside Volvo Cars and the Port of Gothenburg, and is looking for other partners to do that, to accelerate the number of startups that are moving into that space here and into Gothenburg as well. So just a few examples. How do we work as a team here at Business Region Gothenburg, and as in part of the Invest team, is we really want to try and understand from a very early stage what sort of needs companies may have to invest into the region, so that we can gather the relevant actors and build a package around them that's going to encourage them to make decisions to stay here, and then deliver some tailor-made solutions that are going to fit them specifically when they make decisions to move here. We try and simplify that by saying we have a support service through an entire investment process, which includes the initial scoping, the implementation, and then the growth phase that those companies go through when they decide to establish here. And we can also go in as a partner in some strategic investments where we help coordinate deliverables from the public service as well through the entire process. So we act as the one step into the City of Gothenburg authorities, and that was an example we did both with the decision for the battery factory to move to Gothenburg and be built next to Volvo Cars facilities in Torslanda, and also when Polestar was making the decision where they would invest. We also offered that process as well, so that they knew they were talking to the right people within the right departments of the city when it came to making decisions about where they could establish and what needs they had in place. So very briefly about how we operate. Some of the key facts now for the regional economy, to put it into number terms. So we're around 130 operations, enterprises here in the city itself, employing about 577,000 people. Total population just over 1 million in the immediate Gothenburg region. And the number of goods exported is around 356 billion Swedish crowns. And probably the most important figure at the moment is the amount of business R&D that's done in the region as well, is equivalent of around 45 billion Swedish crowns. The numbers and percentages that you have in the green, the circles represent Gothenburg's region's share of Sweden. So we're quite proud in the fact that while we have around 10% of the population, about a third of the business R&D is carried out in this region as well. What is our breakdown of what we call the gross regional product? And this is also in billions of Swedish crowns. You see very much that a lot of it is obviously in the light blue area around manufacturing for the automotive and non-automotive sector, but also ICT, and then also an increasing amount into business services, which has been growing significantly since around 2015. And if we track back to around 2009, 2010, there has been some extremely good growth figures from the region. And you can see that in these figures here, the amount of housing that's been built, the number of people that have moved to the region, the number of new jobs that have been created, and also the increase of real exports as well has been a big increase. And one of the factors why Gothenburg has, as a region, has performed a lot better than the rest of Sweden and most of Europe in that time, and I'll come to that briefly as well. But the figure there that probably is most interesting is the fact that the gross regional product has grown by 72% compoundly over that time, and I can show comparisons to that very shortly as well. This slide shows you also, if we compare employment, wage sum, and gross regional products, as well as exports across the two other big regions in Sweden, plus Sweden as a whole, that Gothenburg sticks out, particularly when it comes to exports. How the big increase there is about twice as much as what Sweden as a whole has experienced, the growth. But also the annual real growth of the region is around 4.2% compared to a 2.9% for Sweden. And if you see that over a chart, it compares Gothenburg region with Sweden. So 72%, which is the figure I mentioned before, is comparable to a 44% growth for Sweden, similar to what Stockholm has experienced, and considerably higher to what both the OECD and the Eurozone's experienced in that time as well. Obviously now since 2022, we've all experienced a slight decrease and a mini recession, and I'll show you that in the next slide, but we are confident that coming over the next 12 months, we will see a return to these similar levels again as well. And this is the slide I was meaning here. You see a period go back to 2006. We've had obviously a number of cycles that we've gone through, the financial crisis plus the COVID pandemic. And each time there's been a peak that's followed those things, which have seen that we've gone into a period of strong or boom times. But you can see in the period from about 2013 to 2019, before the pandemic came in, we had a sustained period of normal, strong growth, which has contributed to some of the big figures that I've shown just before. This is based on the confidence that businesses have in the region. And in 2023, that number fell down to what we call a normal week prognosis, below the light blue line. But we hope and we anticipate that figure will start pointing upwards again now, with some of the other indicators coming in around interest rates, etc. as well. So we hope to see that we're moving up very quickly again. We still have some of the lowest unemployment amongst other Swedish regions. The September figure was 6.3%. At an annual rate for 2023, we had a 5.4% of unemployment, which compares to the national average, which is around 6.4%, and still we're lower than Stockholm and also Malmö as well. So why do we have some of these good figures and these good results? We think a lot of it comes back to the fact that we are a hotspot for innovation, and we've referred to that a couple of times as well. But even at an international level, the European Commission has designated the Gothenburg region as an innovation leader within the EU. We know that we have over 60 test beds here in the region, which is the most concentrated number for the whole of Sweden. And we've also been identified as the 13th city or region in the world where we have a high density of inventors and scientific authors. So all these things obviously mean that we've got lots of very smart people living here that have got great ideas, are entrepreneurs that are doing research together, and combined they help us provide some of the best R&D figures for Sweden. And also we work in collaboration, obviously, with the universities as well, which also adds to that R&D figure. So we're on a scale of 0 to 1, which indicates how our businesses are performing in R&D within the EU, and 1 being the highest. The European Commission has given Gothenburg a 1. Which it may seem strange to think if the scale is only 0 to 1, but 1 nevertheless is what we've got, which is very hard to achieve. Putting that in context across the rest of Sweden as well, as I mentioned before, about 33% of all business R&D is done in the Gothenburg region, where we have about 10% of the population, and it's a similar level to what is done in the Stockholm region. And the whole of Sweden, if you exclude the 3 main regions, has less of R&D than what we do. Obviously, we're very fortunate. We've got AstraZeneca, we've got the 2 large Volvo companies and all their suppliers that contribute to that. And I'll come to that briefly also, the public sector with the universities. But nevertheless, it means that as a share of business R&D, Gothenburg region accounts for over 5% of GDP for Sweden. And as a return on investment by employee, it's about twice the national average as well. And where is that R&D being taking place? So we know that 2/3 of Sweden's business R&D is done in the automotive space here in the Gothenburg region. 2/5 is done in the chemicals or pharmaceuticals area. So that's obviously with the likes of Essity and AstraZeneca and others, Mölnlycke, Getinge. And 1/3 of our research is done in other knowledge intensive or business services as well. So that's where the sort of spread is across the R&D. And we shouldn't forget the tertiary and research education that's done in the region. Many of you will know that there's around 65,000 university students here in the Gothenburg region. 54,000 of them work or are studying at the University of Gothenburg, and 11,000 at the Chalmers. It means that there's a lot of very smart people coming in through the system that are getting their doctoral awards every year and doing active research as well, and together with many companies. And this is how we anticipate the growing market will grow over the next 6 to 10 years. If we take the central Gothenburg region, there's been an increase in the population there of around 45,000 in the last 12 years, but it will increase even more by 2030. And the number of jobs will also grow as well by 60,000 in that time. The Gothenburg region, we are tracking at the moment that around 10,000 new people move to Gothenburg every year, the Gothenburg region that is. And our target is to create around 120,000 jobs before by the time we come to 2035, and that's starting from 2016, and we're tracking at the moment. We've created around those 60,000 already, so around 60,000 to go. So we hope that will be even more than that. If you take even a wider perspective and not just look at the immediate Gothenburg region, there's currently around 1.4 million people living in that. So if you include parts of Halland and further north, the municipalities further north of Gothenburg. And then we anticipate also, when we include a lot of the municipalities that are linked with Borås and the Borås business region, when we get a better infrastructure there with the train line going through to Borås and through Landvetter, that our total market pool would be around 1.8 million by 2030. So we've got a lot of people that can travel into Gothenburg and work in Gothenburg as the infrastructure and improves and more people move to the region. Some of the other key factors for Gothenburg that makes a good sell, the fact that we do have Scandinavia's largest port. 70% of all industry within Gothenburg, within Sweden and Scandinavia is within 500 kilometers of Gothenburg. So it makes the port of Gothenburg a very attractive place to get goods in and out of. 20% of all Sweden's foreign trade goes through the port of Gothenburg. And that means that around 57% of its container traffic is also handled through the port of Gothenburg. So considering it has direct services to around 75 destinations, we understand why a lot of the traffic comes into Gothenburg. And the region's firms have strong export capacity. 356 billion Swedish crowns is the value of exports out of Gothenburg last year. Almost 5,000 exporting firms, and that represents 17% of Sweden's total export value from those 4,700 firms. It means that the Gothenburg region, once again, if you look at the way how productive we are, the value of goods per employee working in export-related businesses is significantly higher than the rest of Sweden, at 818,000 Swedish crowns per employer. The way that the exports are composed, so a large part of that obviously is in the motor vehicles and other transportation equipment, also in other machines, which can be construction machines as well. But there are also a considerable amount in the pharmaceutical space. We shouldn't forget that we also have a very important chemical cluster in the north of Gothenburg and the Stenungsund area, where you've got 6 very large chemical companies working. But also in textiles, there's also an area that we are seeing interest and growth in as well. And where do the goods that are moving from Gothenburg, where do they go? Obviously, Europe is a big part of our export mix, but both China and particularly USA are considerable players here as well. USA having 16% of our exports. Belgium is here. We've got that in brackets because a lot of that export into Belgium is in fact Volvo sending vehicles to their manufacturing sites in Ghent and back again. Some of the areas that we focus in when we're looking at investments, obviously these are the clusters that we're very strong in. The automotive and mobility sector, you recognise a lot of the logos there. The maritime space, advanced industry, life science, ICT, and not forgetting the urban development and fashion side as well. So those are the 6 major areas that we focus on, and where we're getting most of their inquiries when it comes to investment opportunities as well. Very briefly on the life science sector, just to put it in focus, I think a lot of people seem to forget that we have over 700 companies working in the life science space in the Gothenburg region. We have some of the largest employers, such as Astra, which has over 2,500, but also Essity and Dentsply, Mölnlycke, Tamro. They all have quite significant workforces. And then in terms of the value of these companies on the Swedish Stock Exchange, Astra and Essity and even Getinge are quite significant players there as well. So over 10,000 people working in those 700 companies create a total value of over 2.4 billion, 2,400 billion Swedish crowns. Very important sector. But the largest companies, obviously, that we, in terms of employees in the Gothenburg region, are Volvo Cars, significantly, and if you lump together Volvo Trucks and Volvo Technology, then they're also large employers as well. We like to compare also, when we're talking from an investment point of view, how Gothenburg stacks up against some of our competitors, such as Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen, Helsinki, but also other European cities. And we still relatively good value for money when it comes to setting up shop. The fact that we're so well positioned between Oslo, Copenhagen, and Stockholm makes us attractive as well. But we can also offer good culture at a reasonable price, plus childcare, office space, and also living costs are lower than our competitors. What does that mean then overall? So we have a growing population, which means that we'll see a market growth in terms of the number of employees coming into the region, from the current levels of just over 550,000 to 630,000 by 2035. It means that more housing is required. We need more investment in housing to see that the stock grows significantly between now and 2035. And where we have an issue at the moment, and we hope will rebound after the recession, is investment into real estate, so that we see a big increase in both urban development and other investments in the region, because we need that to ensure that employees and have health places to live. I'd like to touch very briefly before I finish on 2 key initiatives that are happening here that you may or may not know about. The Gothenburg Green City Zone. It's a very good way of us to introduce potential investors into the region, because we're talking about systems that have been created for future mobility solutions in 3 distinct areas in Gothenburg. The Lindholmen area, where we have a lot of commercial real estate, the event area around Korsvägen with Svenska Mässan and Ullevi, and now with World of Volvo. And the third area, Forsåker, which is just to the south in Mölndal, where they're creating a new residential area. The plan here is to see how we can create new technology for mobility, which can reduce emissions, but also ensure that the city still moves and makes it an open place for both pedestrians and other traffic as well. It's a really, really good way of selling in the city for investors to come and try that. And the other area, when it comes to transportation, is fossil-free movement of goods at sea, and also in the port area. And here we have goals to reduce emissions by 70% by 2030 through the TransZero initiative as well. Finally, some of the examples which you may have heard about of the larger investments that are taking place in the region. The Novo battery factory, which when up and running will have a total investment of 30 billion Swedish crowns, and a joint venture between Northvolt and Volvo Cars, is still on track and ahead of schedule, in fact, to start production at scale by 2026. And currently they've got 600 people working there. They anticipate having over 3,000 when it's completed. The Volvo Group has also made a decision to build its own battery factory up in Mariestad, also 3,000 direct jobs. It's now been postponed by a couple of years because of the economic situation, but is still planned to take place. I've already mentioned Polestar with its decision to create a global headquarters just here in the centre of the city in Frihamnen, also with a R&D and design centre, moving some of its current operations from Torslanda, but also from the UK, where it currently has operations as well. And the Volvo Group has been, over the last few years, redeveloping its whole Lundby site as well, with its global headquarters R&D centre here as well. Some of the newer ones, GoCo, most people will be familiar with the 350 companies in the next 10 years developed, being established there, is together a joint venture. It was initially a joint venture with AstraZeneca, now standalone with Steptura Group to develop the site. And now Steptura has gone into a joint venture with Volvo Cars to develop the Nest Mobility Development Centre in Torslanda, which is next to their operations there, to also create a similar sort of innovation hub for small, medium-sized companies that want to be close to Volvo to develop mobility solutions of the future. And the first stage of that is currently being built, but there's over 300,000 square metres there that can be developed over the next 10 years or so. And then around logistics, we have the likes of Link 40 on its way up to Landvetter in Härryda, which will be a new logistics hub, which will provide a lot of last mile solutions where companies work together to deliver deliveries into the city rather than all doing it separately. And also very close to Landvetter itself, a little bit further in the future, 400,000 square metres of land, which can be developed for manufacturing and logistics as well, very close to the airport. And the final one, Forsåker, high plans there to have 3,000 apartments or residential units, as well as a place for 4,500 people to work in an area where there'll be no cars and only electric mobility in that area, very close to the new railway station that will be developed when they create the link through to Landvetter and Borås, and easy accessibility both to the life science cluster but also into the centre of the city. And my final picture, just to put everything into context, is to show just how much the city is changing and will change between now and 2035. You know that there's lots of cranes everywhere and has been for many years. And that's obviously a very positive thing in terms of how the city is developing. But you see here through the colour coding, the blue areas are things that have happened or are happening. You've got Word of Volvo, you've got Karlatornet, you've got what's happening around the central station. But if you look at the blue, at the red, the yellow and the orange, which is all going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years, you can see that the central city will transform completely, linking both sides of the Älvstranden to create an area that is twice the size of it is today in terms of density, but also area. But still very accessible and very close, easy to access for our visitors when they come here to attend events and trade shows, etc. Because that's a key part of our key selling point, as well as how accessible everything, and it must remain that way. So we just hope now that the Västlänken will finally be completed in its totality by 2030, allowing all train traffic to go through and connect the city and its regions better. And we look forward to a very prosperous and exciting future ahead. Thank you very much.
Great, Marcus. Thank you so much for sharing. I know we've run out of time, but maybe we have 1 minute to sneak in one question here, which I'm also interested in. Will Landvetter Airport expand to handle the increased population and business in the region?
The airport has got quite significant plans for extending its current terminal, but also possibly even building a second terminal if and when it's needed. There's more than enough space there that they own or have access to even consider building additional runway if needed. But at the moment, the capacity there is that they don't need that and won't need that for the foreseeable future.
Great.
And so the intention when the railway then connects Gothenburg with Landvetter and through to Borås is that the Landvetter will transform from being just an airport where people go to travel somewhere else, but will become a travel destination in its own right, and a sort of a destination hub where people will go transit from, move on to, and also work there. So it will be a very different feel when the rail connection comes.
Great. And one more we can squeeze in here. How will you work to help the city to build houses to handle the increasing of population?
Yeah, so we work very closely with the public sector housing companies already to see where they have opportunity to build or renovate their current stock. So there is also looking at areas where they have existing apartments that can be built on, for example, adding floors to. But also areas where they have land which can be developed to build future-proof residential areas in the future. So Forsåker is an example of that. We're looking to redevelop areas that maybe have been zoned for industrial or other zoning in the past, but are now being rezoned for mixed use, including commercial and residential as well. So we work very closely with developers here that are already here, but also we get a lot of interest from developers that aren't already in Gothenburg and would like to find sites to develop as well. So we work closely with them too.
Great. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you very, very much, Marcus, for attending and giving us all this information. I guess if you want to access it, they can do so on your homepage. Yes. And for everybody else, thank you so much for attending today. And I'm going to go and have a nice birthday lunch with my colleagues. So I wish you a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Tack allihop.
Built on dreams dispelling fear. BayInCo and partners near. Gothenburg whispers all we need to hear.